And all right, it was very unconventional. We've never seen anything quite like it in the Oval Office. But I tried to put aside what I was thinking as a Brit watching from London to if I was an average Joe American, particularly if I'd voted for Trump and had heard him repeatedly say, the moment we win, I'm going to send in Elon Musk to get stuck into federal bloated overspend. And then you hear them basically outline what they've already discovered and what they're going to keep doing. I'd probably be cheering them on. Were you cheering them on?
Hell no. And also, a lot of those people who will be publicly cheering him on, also whining and crying on TikTok because farmers are saying, "Oh, we can't get our resources." But you also talked about what they outlined. Here's the problem: if you go to DOGE, go to their website, there's nothing on it. So this idea that they told us what they found, but they presented no evidence of it. So that's just them. And remember, in the same news conference, even Elon said, yeah, he makes stuff up. He gets it wrong, or I don't bet 1,000. So can you fully trust somebody saying I'm transparent when they're actually not transparent?
Clay Travis, your response.
I think America's incredibly fortunate to have the most brilliant capitalist mind, maybe in the history of the world, decide that he wants to try to apply his incredible genius to making American government more efficient. I mean, let's think about what Elon Musk has done. He sends spaceships to space more efficiently and more safely than NASA does, despite NASA having a 70-year some odd head start on him. He has redefined the way that vehicles move, replacing the combustion engine with electric vehicles. He, I think, has stood up for free speech on a level that has never occurred before. And even though it's not getting very much attention, he has massively increased the profitability of Twitter, now X, while firing many of the employees. And this is exactly what I voted for. Look, the federal government is bloated. It is inefficient, it is laced with fraud, and it's funded by our taxpayer dollars. If Elon Musk offered to come to my house, and my wife probably wouldn't like it because I think she spends a little bit more than me, but he wanted to go through all of our bills and point out all the money that we're wasting on a month-to-month basis, I wouldn't hate it. I'm not going to turn away from the most brilliant mind in maybe world history when you look at the companies that he's founded and the value that he's unlocked. I'm amazed that he has the time and that he has the willingness. And what is he trying to do, Piers? He's trying to balance the budget, something that every family in America has to do, something that, ironically enough, every state has to do. And we're now $36 trillion in debt. We pay more in debt interest than we do for national defense, which is one of the signs of a society that is on decline, going all the way back to ancient Rome when you look at history and how money is spent. So we got to get our financial house in order, and anybody that can help, I'm in favor of. I thought it was very transparent. He answered every question. He said he's going to get some things wrong, and he's going to acknowledge when he gets things wrong. I actually think that's a strength. I get things wrong. You do. Everybody does in their daily life. Acknowledging when you screw up isn't in some way a sign of weakness. I think it's a sign of strength. I thought everything was great about the Oval Office press availability yesterday evening.
Okay, before I go to Rana, Roland, you were putting all sorts of extraordinary faces there. But what specifically did you disagree with? Because, again, listening to Clay's analysis of it, what is there to actually find issue with? Piers Morgan Uncensored is now proudly independent. If you like the show, we ask for only one thing. Subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Now let's get straight to the point. Support for today's show comes from a business focused on a critical issue: prosperity. US national debt is at crisis levels. Inflation has made life more expensive for everybody, and the stock market is precarious. It's enough to make anyone's financial future feel grim. So what is the solution? Well, a simple one is to opt out of the chaos and invest in something solid and reliable: physical gold and silver. And there's only one name you need to remember: American Hartford Gold. This company has earned the trust of thousands of customers with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and glowing reviews you can see for yourself. They offer an incredible range of gold and silver bars and coins. They can be delivered directly to your door, or they'll help you set them up in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. First-class customer service makes the whole process simple, secure, and straightforward. American Harvard Gold is committed to getting the truth out there and giving you peace of mind in uncertain times. And if that wasn't enough, you'll get up to $15,000 worth of free silver when you make your first purchase and mention my name, Piers. So make the smart move. Call 866-692-2474 or text Piers, that's P-I-E-R-S, to 65532. That's 866-692-2474 or text Piers to 65532. All the details are in the description.
It sounds great, but first of all, there are things that are factually important. He didn't found Tesla. He didn't found SpaceX, so Clay's wrong there. Two, when you talk about going through bloated government, if you're going to talk about a bloated bureaucracy, the department where we spend the most money, Pentagon, you've had previous reports that the Pentagon has upwards of $125 billion in waste. If you want to go after the place where there's the most waste, that's where you start. But they're not starting there. Also, you have to factor in contracts as well. How many Elon Musk companies were under investigation by federal agencies about practices such as SpaceX? Where are those investigations gone? So if you want to talk about transparency, shouldn't Elon and his companies be held to the same standard as everyone else? It doesn't appear that's the case.
Okay, Rana, you've been listening to this. Look, those are the two positions. Where do you sit?
I agree with Clay, and I think the American people right now are waking up saying, I had no idea that USAID had 10,000 employees, that the Department of Education had 4,000, that EPA has 14,000. What are they doing? I don't think people are waking up saying, oh, my world has changed now that 10,000 people aren't going to work at USAID. We have a bloated government. We have waste in our government, and it's finally time for people to look at these bureaucracies and audit them. And you know what? Every household in America, like Clay said, is doing the same thing. It is expensive right now. Eggs are expensive. The cost of gas is going up. Insurance is sky high. Every family is going in and saying, how do I change my budget? How do I afford what's going on? And why shouldn't our government be doing the exact same thing? And it's nice to see accountability and have somebody like Elon Musk from outside the government go in and find efficiencies that we need.
Okay, we've been joined by Jeffrey Toobin. Jeffrey, great to have you back on Uncensored. I just want to play you a clip. This is Robert Wright, the former Secretary of Labour under Bill Clinton. Actually, he wrote this. I'm sorry, I'm going to read this to you first. He said, I want to share with you some thoughts about the third hellish week of Trump 2. As of Friday, Trump has signed more than 50 executive orders covering every aspect of American life and much foreign policy. It's not just that this number of executive orders is unprecedented in modern American politics. Many are unlawful, unconstitutional, or both. In the age of monarchs, kings issued decrees. The czars of Imperial Russia proclaimed ukases. The dictators of the 20th century made diktats. Trump issues executive orders. Just taking what he said there, Robert Reich, what is the legality, in simple terms, of all these executive orders? Are they, from what you're seeing, are any of them unlawful, unconstitutional, or both?
Well, there are, I believe, over 50 lawsuits challenging the various aspects of it. And just to talk about Elon Musk, I think it's great that Elon Musk wants to help make the government more efficient. But I think as he does it, he has to follow the law, and that's what the controversy is about. He's a very successful businessman, and it's great that he wants to help. But there are laws about who has access to people's personal data. And he doesn't get to violate it just because he's a successful businessman. The thing that I find most troubling about the executive orders is that we have a system in the United States where the Congress controls the power of the purse. The Congress decides how much money is spent and how it is spent, at least in which department. And whether the president is taking unilateral action to overrule the Congress in contravention of what the Constitution says, I think is very troubling. And that's one of the issues that's before the courts. I also think, the effort to overturn birthright citizenship is contrary to the very words of the 14th Amendment. So, it is certainly an admirable goal to make the government more efficient. And the president was elected, and he certainly has an agenda that he wants to implement, but he has to do that within the law, and that's what's now before the courts.
J.D. Vance. Sorry, Roland.
Did the Supreme Court rule on line item veto? Did they rule on that, Jeffrey? And the president does not have that authority?
They rejected the line item veto. Yes, that was ruled unconstitutional. But that was a very specific case that may or may not apply to what Musk is doing.
Right.
And I think for all the talk of transparency, there have been very few details. There have been a lot of anecdotes, many of which have turned out to be false, like the 50, like the condoms in Gaza. It would be a lot better if there were specific examples of what waste that was found, much less fraud.
I mean, I thought, Jeffrey, watching yesterday, Elon did begin to rattle off a load of things which certainly, if they were as he said them, and he made the point about the Gaza thing, he just got that wrong. He said, I'm going to make mistakes. I thought that was refreshingly honest, actually, to hear anyone in the political sphere say that. But actually, he'd also, he made a series of specific things which just on the face of it sounded to me, if I was an American listening to that, what a waste of money. So, I mean, it could be that all the things you've just said are correct, but it could also be that they challenge the challenges against this, that it turns out to be legal, and they are slashing a lot of overspend, couldn't it?
Well, maybe yes and maybe no, but rattling off facts at a news conference, and if you listen to President Trump at that news conference, he said, well, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's actually billions. It may be $1 trillion. I mean, when you're talking about those sorts of things, and you're talking about people's lives. I mean, it's very easy to trash USAID. You know what USAID does? Is it keeps people from starving. And they're, at the border between at the Thai border, maybe the richest country in the world should do its part to keep people from starving. And yes, they have a few thousand employees, and maybe that's a good thing. So Congress thought it was a good thing. That's why they created the USAID. So, I mean, I think if you're going to talk about, please.
We can still give aid without having USAID. You can still give aid. We are still going to give aid as a country. You don't need a giant bureaucracy. We did the Marshall Plan without a USAID. So to say that because of this department, now we can't give humanitarian aid is ridiculous. I mean, we don't need these bloated bureaucracies. And don't you think it's good, Jeffrey, to go in and say, let's make sure we are having efficiencies? Marco Rubio said it right. He said, we can't say that we can be apolitical in our giving. Why should we be giving to countries that don't agree with democracy, that don't love America? Do half of these countries even know that this aid is coming from America? I think these are fair questions to ask, and I think the American people deserve those answers.
Well, also, I would say, Jeffrey, I mean, it wasn't, the example you gave, if you're helping starving people, fine. That's something that many people might think, fair enough. America, big, powerful country, of course it can. It's when you get into the weeds of some of these grants they were making, $7.9 million to teach Sri Lankan journalists how to avoid binary gendered language. I mean, if I was, again, American listening to that, I'd be going nuts, saying, what? I can't afford my eggs.
Yes,
I can't afford my eggs because we're sending millions of dollars to teach Sri Lankan journalists how to be woke.
Put a pin in that and see if that's really what the $7.9 million was. There have been so many distortions, not just the condoms in Gaza. That this is why it helps to actually write things down and distribute them so people can actually see whether what people are saying is true. It's good that Elon Musk had a press conference.
On the Doge website? You mean like on the Doge website?
There's
that's
nothing.
Blank?
Put it on the Doge website, exactly. It's
Put
not
it on.
there.
Let us see it.
Okay, let me bring in Clay.
Here's the problem, Piers.
Hang on, Roland. Hang on, I'll bring you back in a sec. I can see Clay beginning
No problem.
Clay is simmering like a volcano, ready to erupt. So erupt away, Clay.
Yeah. First of all, the Supreme Court's going to tell us what is legal and what is not eventually. Whatever 5 justices of the Supreme Court say, that is the boilerplate. Everything comes down to this. And what I would say is all of the people filing lawsuits should be careful. It wasn't very long ago that a lot of the so-called left-wing legal experts were saying, remember, hey, Colorado can take Donald Trump off the ballot because he has been involved in an insurrection they were trying to apply a Confederate era Civil War statute to the modern day. And the Supreme Court said 9-0, no, they can't. I'm old enough to remember, guys, when Donald Trump asserted executive privilege related to Jan 6th. Most of the so-called legal left-wing experts said this is a crazy idea. What do we get? A Supreme Court ruling that actually expands the bounds of the executive presidential powers. So a lot of these actions, to me, seem to be fairly grounded in presidential powers as they pertain to the executive branch and the authority vested therein. Now, Jeffrey pointed out, and I think it's going to be an interesting case when it eventually gets to the Supreme Court, how they analyze birthright citizenship. As a history nerd, I am utterly fascinated by the entire era surrounding that, because do you know why birthright citizenship, that is birthright citizenship by soil, not by blood, which is far more common worldwide, actually exists? Colonialism. Because when we were colonies, and when much of Latin America were colonies, I haven't heard this talked about much, Piers, the reason why you got birthright citizenship on that soil was not to be a citizen of the United States. Remember, we weren't a country yet. We were all colonies all over North and South America. It was so your kids could go back to Portugal or go back to England or go back to France and still be considered citizens of those countries, because they were far more powerful and they didn't want their people being shipped over and basically having to be leaving behind their own citizenship. Now, as it pertains to money being spent, I think this is really significant. We can't be loaning money to other countries to try to make them better when we're doing so at 5 and 6% interest on a $36 trillion debt. What astounds me here is Elon Musk voted for Joe Biden in 2020. He voted against Trump in 2016. This is not some right-wing ideologue going through the federal government slashing like crazy. Whether it's men in women's sports, which thankfully has been struck down, or waste and fraud in government, which is what Doge is focused on, it seems to me that the Democrat Party, time after time, Piers, is narrowing their window of who would they actually represent. They're taking the side of the 20 or 25% of the American public and leaving Trump with full field to go after 75 or 80% of common sense Americans. This to me doesn't feel Democrat, Republican, or independent. It feels common sense. And by and large, it feels to me like the agenda of Trump 2.0 is actually just good old-fashioned American common sense. And it's why he is setting all-time records so far in approval, because the majority, even the vast majority of the American public, agrees with most of what he's done so far.
Yeah, you make some really interesting points. I mean, Roland, you can laugh, but the Democrats seem to me the Democrats seem to me to be completely at sea right now. They are rudderless at sea. They don't know where they want to go or how they want to get there or who's going to lead them. And by contrast, Trump seems much more confident in being president. He's got one of the smartest brains in America, whatever you think of him. Musk clearly is that, at his side. He's got an incredible mandate from the public. He had more people from almost every demographic group you could think of vote for him this time round than ever before. And like I say, the Democrats seem to have no real response to this other than to just say anti-Trump stuff. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing something, but that's my take on it.
Yeah, you're missing the incredible mandate, 1.6%. It's not an incredible mandate.
They won the White House, the House of Representatives, the Senate.
Okay, but that's not incredible.
They won the Electoral College and won the popular vote.
Piers.
I'm just saying. I mean, Roland, Let's be clear. They won absolutely everything there is to win.
Pierce, I'm aware of that. Let's also be clear. Biden had a larger margin over Trump. Was it called an incredible mandate? No. Here's the fact. It is a fact. It is a fact. Republicans control House, Senate, White House. That's a fact. When you talk about what is the impact on policies, to the point that Jeffrey was laying out, when you talk about spending those things that happen. Right now, you've got folks in these red states who are, oh my God, what's going on? Rural health centers. When you freeze the funds, what has happened with those federal health centers? When you start talking about farmers who are now, wait a minute, what's going on? What about my soybeans? What about the money what about the $1 billion that USAID was actually buying products from American farmers? And so all these things are going to happen. But when we talk about what's also factual, again, I can't necessarily believe Elon Musk when he says things that are blatantly lies. He posts these things on Twitter as well. So this is very simple. If the things that they claim money is being spent on, this is very simple. Put it out there. I don't want to just hear you say it. I want to see the actual evidence. And here's the deal. We'll wait and see. But I also I cannot wait to see if he has the same interest in the massive spending waste that we see in the Pentagon, where the Pentagon budget is approaching $1 trillion. So please, by all means, identify it. But the other thing is, excuse me.
This is important. Roland's mentioned this twice.
Excuse me.
The Defense Department has asked for Elon Musk to come in, and Trump has said that they want to do it. So you mentioned this twice. They are going to look at the defense budget, which has failed to pass basic accounting for the entire Biden administration and the past 7 years.
And here's the deal. Clay, you can finish your point after I make my point. And what I'm saying is this here. When you look at spending, when you look at what Congress has approved, what I also want to know is, when will Republicans also take responsibility for that? When you talk about, you keep mentioning $36 trillion, how much of that, $8 trillion, was added by Trump the last time? So if you want to talk about the debt, you have to say who contributes to that based upon their actions. And that is absolutely bipartisan, Democrat and Republican.
Okay, I mean, look, Clay's made the point, and he's right, that they've all said, Elon, Trump, Pete Hegseth, that they're going to go into the Pentagon spending, and they're going to and they're going to go through that, and I'm sure they will. They're going to go through every department, it seems to me. Rana, let me ask you this. I mean, I think that Roland made a good point there. It's one thing to say you're being really transparent, and that's certainly what Elon Musk kept saying yesterday. But if the Doge website doesn't have the specific information which shows that transparency, how does the American public see the transparency? I mean, how are they going to get this? Because I think that's an important part of this. I think if they see it in real time as it's unraveling, great. If they don't see it, why should they believe that it's all being transparent?
Well, part of that starts with a press conference that we had yesterday from the Oval Office with open questions and press being able to ask those questions, things we were not seeing under President Biden. President Biden wouldn't even have a press conference. Yeah, but Elon Musk kept saying, I'm being completely transparent every step of the way. But as Roland pointed out, if you go to the Doge website, there's nothing there. I agree with you, Pierce, and I agree with Roland. It's an amazing thing. I do think we have to lay out what the savings are and show what they're finding. I think that is important as they're finding fraud and waste and abuse. It's important that that's brought to the American public. I think that's going to happen. We are 3 weeks in. I know it feels like longer because President Trump's getting so much done. But I do think that's important as they go forward, that they TikTok. Here are the things that are happening. Here are the things that we found. We saw day one, Doge came in and said, we're going to make people come back to work. The waste of people just staying at home, the amount of the workforce that was not going to work 7 days a week. That's good for our country. We're going to see more and more of that as this goes forward. Okay, Jeffrey, JD
I'm sorry, Doge told people don't come in. Doge said don't come in. Then they offered these fake buyouts that Congress has not appropriated any money for. What are you talking about? Doge said don't come in. The government workers that are necessary, they are saying you're going to have to show up to work 7 days a week like everybody else in real America is doing. I mean, why can you have an entire federal workforce working remote? It's just not feasible. Hold on. And I understand that, but Doge said don't come to work. Doge said don't come to work. Then they offered buyouts that Congress has not authorized. You have there's nowhere. No. You didn't hear what I just said. That Congress has not authorized buyouts. How can Doge offer buyouts to federal workers that has not been appropriated by Congress? How?
Just like businesses do it.